Flack math! Give me some math and I'll give you some flack. Flack math!
Okay, so we are doing a couple more lessons today.
Is it lesson 78?
77 and 78, yeah.
Are we learning how to add number 2 with all the addition signs?
What'd you say about
Are we
number
learning
2?
2 plus 2?
Oh, yeah, see all these negative, negative, negative 2.
Positive, positive. I'm not saying that.
We should learn 2 plus 2.
That might be a little too advanced for you guys.
Because how do we know 2 plus 2 didn't change to 5 overnight?
It could have. It's kind of what we decided it was. But listen, did you know that 2 plus 2 has always been 4? Even before the beginning of the universe. 2 plus 2
It's just
has
floating
been
there.
4.
Before numbers were even a thing.
But like the idea of counting, like that's always been a concept.
Do we have to just
Now
say
the word 2 and the symbol 2 and the word 4 and the symbol 4, we created those words and symbols, but 2 plus 2 has always been and always will be 4. You can count on that. You can count on math. It's always been there right beside you and will always be with you. Yes.
What if the alphabet is not in alphabetical order?
Whoa, that's
Yeah.
no luck.
Well, they didn't have anything that would actually help, but whatever.
Oh, that's really fashionable. That's really nice. Okay, so we are going to do 77. We're not pre-algebra. Well, we are, kind of.
Why are we doing 77 if we aren't learning 77?
What? What now?
Oh,
Check the homework.
yeah.
Well, I still want to tell you what lesson 77 is about.
Oh.
But do you skip
Right?
like
But problem set 77 has, problem set 78 has 76 questions about 77 too. So,
That answer.
all right, here's the deal with word problems. Word problems are dumb. Okay, so let's translate them to math. So here's an example. I don't want you to math it. Okay, I know it's tempting to math it, but don't math it. Okay, I want you to translate, and then at the last possible moment, we're going to translate. We're going to do math. So what percent of 40 is 25? Now, some of you are mathing. Stop it. You're starting to divide, and you're trying to figure out, okay, what portion of 40 is, no, don't do that. Let's just translate this. How do you say what in math?
a variable.
A variable. Now, what variable makes the most sense? Well, probably the word that comes after what is percent. So I'm going to say that what percent is P. Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
How do you say of in math? Yes, Alan.
Multiplication.
Multiplication. So of 40 means times 40. Everybody okay with that? Then how do you say is in math? Equals. You sound like your little bunny. So is 25 is equals 25. All right, we didn't do any math. We just translated this, okay? Now, how do you find the missing number in a multiplication problem? Oh my gosh, my hands are filthy.
It's really random.
Okay, sorry, I scared you, Kiara. So we are going to use algebra. So remember, your main goal in algebra is to get P by itself. That sounds funny. Okay? So you want to get the variable by itself. That's your main goal, is to get variable by itself. Okay? Now to get rid of stuff, to get rid of that 40, you do the opposite operation. What's the opposite of multiplication? Division. So we're going to divide, and then the principle 3 says, whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. Cover your tracks. You can't just go around dividing by 40. You can go to jail for that. Okay? Don't do that. You probably can't, but some states maybe, but not Colorado, especially Boulder. You're fine. You can do whatever you want in Boulder. Okay? So P equals, well, 40 doesn't go into 25. So what do? Let's divide it anyway. Do you guys know what this is? 25 divided by 40?
I just did it in my head, and I got.
You got what?
10.
Goes not 10.
Oh,
Let's
my
see
brain's
here.
broken.
So it goes into that 2 times. See what I'm doing here? Goes into 2, 5 times point. So 0.625. So is that my answer?
Oh. Yes.
So that P reminds me what kind of answer I want. What kind of answer do I want? Percent. So how do you change a decimal to a percent? Yes.
Oh, you move the decimal over 2 places.
Okay, so this is going to be 62.5%. You're done. Okay, now let's just throw it back in the problem and see if it makes sense. So 62.5 is a little more than half, right? Because 50% is half. So 62.5% of 40 is 25. That makes sense because 20 is half of 40 is 50%. So 25 would be more than 50%. It makes sense, right? So see how the only time we did math really was right here. This is the only time we had to divide something. But even solving an equation, you're just getting rid of stuff. Well, how do you just have to remember that the opposite of multiplication is division. Okay? All right, see if you can do this one by yourself. Here's example 2. What percent of $3.50 is 28 cents? Okay, don't be afraid of the decimals. Don't be afraid. So this looks a lot like the one above it. You're missing the percent. And the only thing different is you're going to have decimals. That's fine. We can handle decimals. So how do I set up this problem? How do I translate this? Grace?
We're going to do P times $3.50.
Okay, so just for simplicity, I'm just going to say 3.5. Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Since you can forget about the money until the very end when you have to answer the question, but even the question they're asking is not money, it's percent. Okay? And then what?
Equals 0.28.
Equals 0.28. Perfect. All right, now somebody else tell me how to solve this equation. Hunter?
Whatever you do to one side, do to the other.
Okay, so what do you have to do to one side to solve the equation?
Divide by 3.5.
Yeah, you have to get rid of this 3.5, which is hanging all over this P. That sounds gross. Okay, so to get rid of it, you do the opposite of what it's doing. It's multiplying. So divide by 3.5. Whatever you do to one side, do to the other.
Are you going to make the gross sounds again?
If you hit one shoulder, you have to hit the other. Okay, it's awesome. Yes.
If a knife falls on one foot, you have to stab the other foot.
No, you don't, but you have to apply equal amounts of pressure to even it out. So if I get stabbed in the right foot, then I will probably step on my left foot a little bit just to make it feel a little better. I mean,
Wait.
you got to know the rules. Okay, yes.
Before you fix your step foot or after?
No, I would go to the hospital, but on the way to the hospital, I'd probably be like, can you squeeze my left foot quick? And do that. Actually, I'd probably pass out. I'm not really good with like blood and stuff like that. So I'd be passed out. I might die on the way to the hospital from just passing out in utter shock. Okay, so this isn't bad. We can do this. How do you divide decimals? What's the rule on that? Blip, blip, blip. Yeah, you can't. So what do?
You give it a minute thing. You move the decimal over.
Okay, how many places?
1.
Yeah, because this just needs to be a whole number. You don't care about the inside. You just care about what's on the outside. That sounds very shallow, right? Don't care about what's on the inside. Just care about what's on the outside. So I just move it one place. So that's where my decimal goes. How many times does 35 go into 2? Well, I hope it doesn't go in there. It doesn't even go into 28. So I'm going to put a 0 there. Okay, add another 0. How many times does 35 go into 280? It goes exactly 8 times. Okay, I'm going to get 280, boom, boom. Okay, so here's my answer, but is that what you're going to stay with? What is it asking for? Percent, so what percent is that? Good job raising your hand. I bet you get a lot of exercise, because it looks like it takes a lot of energy for you to do that. So what percent is this? Yes.
8%.
Yeah, move it over 2 places. It's a percent. So this is 8%. A little under 10%. Do you guys know how to find 10% of something? Yeah, you just move the decimal over. What's 10% of 250? 25. Okay. So 10% of 350 is going to be 35 cents. But it's not 10%. It's a little less than 10%. Is 28 cents a little less than 35 cents? Okay, cool. So it makes sense. See, I didn't even mean to do that. It makes sense.
Oh.
All right. It's a long day. Okay, let's do a few more and then we'll move on to the next chapter. All right, here is example 3. Says this. Let's translate this and see if we can solve it. 75% of what number is 600? Okay, don't start mathing. I know you guys are trying to figure out, okay, 75% is 3/4. Don't do that. Don't do it. Let's just translate it. How do you say 75% in math? Marin? 3/4? That's fine. Or you could say what else? Hunter?
0.7.
0.75. That works too. Let's use 3/4. How do you say of? Anybody? Anybody at all? Yes, Addie. Multiply. And I say what number? What's a good choice? Oh, thanks for participating. It's about time.
N.
Okay, N. That's right. And then how do you say is 600? Well, that's just equals 600. Okay? So now we got a fraction. It wasn't my idea to use a fraction. It was Marin's idea. Oh, well, we're going to make it work. So how do you get n by itself? What's the 3/4 doing to the n? You make funny noises when you raise your hand. How do you get n by itself? I think Adeline knows. Does anyone else know? What's the 3/4 doing to that poor n? What's that 3/4 doing? Multiplying. So how do you get rid of something that's being multiplying? You divide. So you're going to divide both sides by 3/4. So how do you divide fractions? Copy dot flop. You're going to copy the 600. So that's just a 600. Dot flop the 3/4. The 4/3. So I can cross reduce. Take 3 out of both. You get 1 and 200. Are you guys with me so far? Now you just multiply across and you get 800. Okay, you could have done this with a decimal. Then you would have had 0.75 n equals 600. Then you divide both sides by 0.75, and you would have still gotten 800. Now, I think it's easier to do that. So I think Marin made a good choice. Because dividing by 3/4 is just multiplying by 4/3, right? Which I think is easier than dividing by 75. That's kind of annoying, right? Okay, 2 more and then we're done with this chapter, okay? So I'm going to give you all the possible scenarios that they might throw at you in your homework and on your test. So if you understand these, then you should be fine on your test and in your homework.
There's one
Mr. Flack?
that I want to get right.
Yes, Kiara? Question?
Couldn't you divide 600? Yes, I do have a question. Couldn't you divide 600 by 75,
You could, but then you have to,
but end up with 8?
yeah, then you'll have to move the decimal to figure it out. So you'll get 8, but then what happened to those other 2 zeros? So dividing by 0.75, you can divide by 0.7, you can divide by 75, but you have to add 2 zeros to the 600. So it's really 60,000 divided by 75, 800, okay? But it's the same division problem. You just have to put the decimal in the right place. Okay, let's do example 4. Example 4 says 50. I know how to translate that. Is what percent of 40? Okay. 50 is what percent of 40? Okay, don't try to think about this, because if you think about it, you're going to get confused, because 50 is what percent of 40? Wait a minute, 50 is bigger than 40. Okay, I'm going to stop. So what should we do first? I don't see any hands. All right, Adeline?
You guys have to translate it.
Okay, so how do you translate this? Oh, I was calling on you.
Oh,
Yeah.
50 equals P times 40.
Okay. Oh, I did. Why did I say 40%? That's so embarrassing. Okay, 50 is what percent of 40? This is the translation. We haven't done any math yet. I'm still not going to do math because all I'm going to do is draw some lines here. How do I get P by itself?
Divide it by 40.
Divide it by 40, or flush it down the toilet. Okay. So P equals, let's see, that goes in 1 time, and then like 2 times, so you get 1.25. Is that your answer? Is that your answer? What's your answer?
125.
Yes, so it's more than 100%, which makes sense because 50 is more than 40. So it's going to be over 100%. All right. See how that P really reminds me? Okay, wait, that's not the answer because it's asking for a percent. So change a decimal to a percent by moving the decimal over 2 places. That's not bad, right? Okay, one more and then we're done with this lesson. $60 is 150% of what? Okay, so do that one.
All right.
Might be able to do this one in your head. Addie, what number? Did you get an answer?
I did.
What's your answer?
20?
No. All right.
Wait.
Mr. Flack,
Yeah? Kiara? Did you get an answer? Do you have an answer, Kiara?
yeah, I put it in the chat. I'm not sure if it's right though.
Oh, okay. So no. So what should we do first to make this easy? Do you have an answer?
Yeah, I got 2.5.
Okay, 2.5. So Kiara got something kind of like that too. So no. Hunter, what'd you get?
Still thinking of just having to wait one.
Did I stump you guys?
I don't have to translate it.
Okay, what'd you get,
Translated
Grace?
it, that just made it a little harder.
Did it make it harder
Yes.
by translating it?
Um,
I don't think so.
45.
Nope. Well, it's not working to not translate it either. So how about we translate it? How do you translate this? How does this translate? Okay, somebody besides Adeline, tell me how to translate this. Hunter?
I'm gonna guess 40.
Okay, so how do you translate it? 60 equals, how do you say 150%? Over 100?
1.5.
You could do that. I'm gonna go with the decimal this time. 1.5. Are you okay with that? Because remember, percents are useless in mathematical calculations, so you either have to change it to a fraction or a decimal. Okay? And then of what number? That's just times n, right? So far, so good? Okay, how do you get n by itself? Adeline?
You divide 1.5 by 1.5.
Okay, and whatever you do to one side, do to the other. So how many times does 15 go into 600? Goes in 4 times exactly into 60. So 40. So that was right. So n equals 40. Okay, so how'd you get 2.5? Tell me how you got 2.5.
I divided 150 by 60.
Okay. So you just did it the opposite way instead of 60 by 150. Okay? Because if you divided 60 by 150, you get 0.4, but then you have to deal with the decimal. But so if you think about this too long, it's going to be confusing. So that's why I say don't think about it. Just translate it into math. I don't want to do math in English. That's dumb. Okay? Do math in math. Translate it to math. Solve that equation. Just get n by itself and you're done. Okay? Any questions? All right. So one more lesson, 78. This will be a fun one. We're going to graph inequalities. So what the heck is an inequality? Did we talk about that yet? Well, we know what an equality is. That's just an equation. Like we know how to graph x equals 2. Do you guys know how to graph on the number line x equals 2? What do you do?
X equals 2.
Yeah, so how do you graph that?
I'm stumped.
So if I graph x equals 2, I just have to put a point. I have to plot right there, right? That's x equals 2. Everybody agree with that? Okay, well, what if I wanted to graph everything greater than or equal to 2? What if I wanted to graph 2, but also everything greater than 2? So see how greater than or equal to 2? So how do I graph that?
Wouldn't you draw a straight line?
Yep, so you would graph 2, and then you would also graph everything to the right of it, even 2.1 and 2.01 and 2.0000001, but everything up to infinity. So you would not just shade on 2 like you did up here, but you shade on 2 and everything to the right of 2. So if I translate this into English, it would say shade to the right of and on top of 2. Okay, so if it's not equal to, it's either going to be less than or greater than. But in algebra, we have this symbol that says it could be greater than or it could be equal to 2. Okay, well, what about this? What if I told you to graph everything greater than 2? Not equal to 2, but everything greater than 2. Well, how do you graph that?
3 and above.
Okay, but what about 2.5?
So, would you
Right after 2.
Yeah, so right after 2, okay. So I'm going to get as close as I can. And I don't think I can get close enough. So everybody put your fingers together like this. Did we already talk about this?
No.
Get as close as you can. Do you think it's possible for you to get closer?
Yes.
Yes. Do you think you could get twice as close? Like cut the distance in half?
Technically,
Okay.
if you put your fingers together, it's still inseparable.
Yeah, right. So that's science there. But if 2 things come together, like look at this distance. You can cut this in half, right? You can cut this in half. If you keep cutting everything in half, are you ever going to get to that finger? Never. Okay? Because if you divide a number by 2, you'll never get to 0. Okay? You'll just get half of it. That's annoying, right? Okay, but so how do we graph this? We can't just graph everything to the right because we can't get close enough. So there's another symbol that we created, and I call it the everything but. Okay, so we're going to draw a force field around 2 so it doesn't get touched. Now, if I draw that force field, now I can shade to the right, and it's okay. Now, obviously, there's numbers, there's stuff in there that needs to be shaded, right? But that circle tells whoever's looking at it that I want to shade all the way up to 2 without touching 2. So this could, you're still shading 2.00000000000 or whatever, 1, even though it looks like I'm starting at 2.5 and moving. But that's what that open circle does. That's a symbol that says everything but 2. Okay? Yes.
You're also shading the entirety of pi.
Yeah, so pi's in there too. So pi is greater than 2 as well. So you're not only shading the nice numbers like 3, 4, 5, 6, you're shading all the numbers in between the nice numbers 3, 4, 5, and 6. Even pi. Pi is not a very nice number. It's an irrational number. It's a nice food group, but it's not a nice number. Okay? So you're shading everything but 2. So that open circle says, okay, shade everything greater than 2, but don't touch 2. Okay? Even though technically you should be shading inside of that circle a little bit more, but that circle says, don't worry about getting as close to 2 as possible. This circle says, communicates, I understand. I understand that you want to get everything but 2. Okay? So let's see if you can graph this. Here's example 1. Ready? I want to graph this inequality, x, this symbol, 4.
What does that symbol mean?
Good question. Well, don't think of it as math. Think of it as an arrow. Which direction is it pointing?
That way.
Yep. So that's where you're going to shade. Okay. So tell me how to graph this. Someone describe to me how to graph this. Grace?
So, like write out the number.
Okay. So the only number I'm going to write is 4. I don't care about the other ones because it kind of gets the point across. So now how do I graph this?
You're gonna draw draw a circle around 1,
Okay,
and then she did the to the left.
okay, is that right?
I don't
Now, what symbol does that mean?
Can't touch that.
know. Don't touch.
Don't touch it, right? But this symbol says everything to the left of and on top of it could equal 4. So remember, this is 2 symbols in one, less than or equal to. So what do we want to do with that circle?
Erase it.
We want to fill it in. We don't want to erase it. We want to fill it in. So we want to include 4 and everything to the left of 4.
That's it.
Okay, here's another good way to remember it. If it takes more ink or lead to draw the symbol, it's going to take more ink or lead to graph it. See how you're filling it in? You're putting more ink or lead in there. If it takes less ink or lead to draw the symbol, it's going to take less ink or lead to graph it. You don't fill it in. Okay, one more. Tell me, somebody else, tell me how to graph this. Okay, somebody tell me how to graph that. Maren, how do you graph it?
Hold on, I'm still thinking. So you put everything in negative 1.
Okay, so I'm going to put a -1 there. And then what do I do? I'm confused. What do I do?
Put the circle and then you color in
Okay, which way do I color? Left or right?
left.
Yes, because it said left. So I'm going to shade left of, but not on top of. There's no line there, so just left of -1. So I need to leave that circle not filled in. That is now an everything but. Okay, shade everything up except everything but -1 to the left of -1. Okay. All right, can you guys remember that? All right, good. That's all I got. Congratulations. You finished the week. What is going on here? Okay, we good?